Hi, we are recording now.
Ai, kia ora tātou. Ka tū au I nai nei ki te mihi kia koutou ko tai mai nei. Te tuatahi mi ki ngā atua kaharaua. Hoki ki ngā mati ko weha tu ki te pō. A rātou ki a rātou, a tātou ki a tātou te hungora. Ko tai mai nei ki ke raru I te tūnui o tēnei whare, te whare kaunihera tai o ki Waitaha, te whare o tātou. Nei rā te mihi ki a koutou, ki ngā kai kaunihera, ngā kaimahi, ki ngā memo te hapori ko tai mai nei, ki te hoatu tō tono, tō kaupapa, tō taki, kia mātou tēnei ata. Ai kia koe Jenny, and araho mai Philip, mō tō whānau hoki, ai tēnei te mi ki a koutou. So kia ora tātou, just standing to acknowledge everybody, welcome us here, and yeah, especially to our public that have come in today to share their views with us. So kia ora tātou, and I'm going to hand to Elizabeth to do karakia.
So I'm going to do the karakia, ke haia te ata. Ka haia te ata, ka hapara te ata, ka koraki te manu, ka wairori te kutu. Ko te ata nui ka horaina, ka take te umuri, hepo he ao ka awatia.
Thank you, Councillor Pauling and Councillor Mackenzie. We just have to check first that you've got the documents, additional documents, 7.1.1, the Performance Audit and Risk Committee, and 8.6, the changes to fees and charges policy. And I'd just like you to all note that we have tabled here the final revision of the Te Waihora co-governance agreement, which we'll table at the appropriate place in the meeting. Just so everybody knows, we have some people online and they'll be listening in, so please make sure you all use your microphones. So we do apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Apanui, or is he online? I don't see him online. So an apology from Councillor Apanui. No other apologies. The next item on our agenda is conflicts of interest. I haven't been advised of any changes in conflicts of interest. Now we're up to our public forum, where we have deputations and petitions and wonderful citizens to come up to the table and tell us what they'd like to tell us about. So the first person I'd like to welcome to the table is Philip Haythornwhite. And Philip, you're going to talk to us about safety and accessibility around our city using public transport and particularly bus stops. Welcome. Great to see you here today. We'll just get the microphone put on.
Oh, right. Madam Chairman, the purpose of this submission is basically to bring to you once again the very important issue of the safety of your bus passenger, such as myself and any other person. As you know, you contract the routes that people use. You determine the bus companies that use them. But the council, the Christchurch City Council, provides you with the public bus stop system. But around the city, constantly, you can still find that there are many bus stops that are in total breach of operational safety standards and in total breach of what I would consider to be the Human Rights Act, Section 21, discrimination on the grounds of disability. Considering, remember, I can't drive, I have epilepsy, therefore I am committed to the bus system for life. Now, if you were to go to Route 60 to Lake Terrace Road, opposite on there by the by the lake itself, you will see the inbound bus stop that is there with a shelter, but there is no loading platform. So how does the person travel the extra 145 millimeters to the ground without falling, as there is effectively no footpath? It makes it very dangerous for anyone who has any form of mobility difficulty. It's impossible for a person in their wheelchair. And similarly, go to Halswell Road at Aidenfield Drive intersection. At the back of your mind, where does that take you to? It takes you to Nash Road, St. John of God Hospital. On both sides of Halswell Road, there is no loading platform. You cannot get on and off the buses safely there. Same goes to the New Brighton interchange. Look at it carefully. The road is there, the dish curb is there, and all they have done is put drainage covers over the drain, presuming it is like a driveway. That just makes it level. You can't get up onto the bus safely. And then just to add to it, the Palms Mall. Go and have a look at the bus stop there outside the old Kmart building. And it is still in the same disgusting state that was created as of the earthquake 22 February 2011. I'm surprised you haven't had more injuries there. Yet we were being consulted 3 years ago on its repair. Now, I believe that the Christchurch City Council, in maintaining its bus services, must keep them up to scratch. But I also believe you as Ecan have a duty of care to people, which is why my proposal is this to you, that Environment Canterbury must assess all bus stops that are used by its contracted services to ensure that they are safe for their passengers to use, and where they are found to be unsafe or non-compliant with Section 21 of the Human Rights Act 1993 and any amendments to that act, notify their contracted companies that they are closed until fixed by the Christchurch City Council and brought back to operational standards and safe to use again. I do not believe it is fair on your bus passenger, like myself, to be using them when they are deliberately dangerous bus stops. The Christchurch City Council itself produced this book, the Christchurch City Bus Stop Guidelines, which anyone can get a copy of it, 2009, and have been supposedly amending it. They have in here the set design for the bus stops, which is an 8-meter no stopping lane, a 14-meter box for the bus to use, and a 4-meter no stopping line going out for the bus to exit. Go around the city and look, though, and ask yourself how many of your bus stops are legally marked out in this fashion. And even outside the Shirley Intermediate School, there is no 8-meter approach line, so the bus has to swing right onto the no stopping lines beyond the school entrance and stop there. Technically, you are illegally parked because you are on the total no stopping line now. You're not in the box because the car is jammed up against here. The box is there, but your no stopping line to allow your bus to get in has not been legally marked out. This is a disgusting system around the city. And you must not put your passengers in danger. Please, would you remember, as my last final statement on this issue, years ago, a little booklet was put out on the bus priority lanes that said, everybody wins when the bus comes first. Please put the statement correct. Everybody wins when the bus passenger comes first, because your buses are useless if they are running around empty. They are worthless. What is the worth of you paying for useless empty buses? Yet people like myself with epilepsy are obliged to use them. So I please say to you, can we please have our bus stops safe so that you do not put your bus passenger in danger? And you say to the City Council, meet your responsibility for the safety of our passengers. Thank you very much. And I would like to make one final point. I am making this as a totally private submission. I am a member, National Life member of Epilepsy New Zealand, but I am no longer the president of the Disabled Persons Assembly. I resigned my position last week after 5 years and 10 months. And so this has nothing to do with them.
Well, thank you very much for that excellent presentation, Philip, and taking the time to come along. I wonder if any councillors have any questions they'd like to ask. Councillor Clearwater.
Thanks very much, Philip, for your deputation and talking with us. And I just wanted to start, and you've raised some very specific examples. I'm just wondering, and you've also made it clear that in fact that is Christchurch City Council's responsibility. And I'm just wondering, I'm assuming that you've pointed out those specific examples probably numerous times to Christchurch City Council. And have you redone so recently?
I have done. Councillor Clearwater, you and I know each other from the council tables, and I gave them a submission in 2016 called the Christchurch Bus Stop System is Broken. And I could let you have a copy of this one as well, about the disgusting state at the time of the spinal unit bus stops, which I had to get them to change. But what I'm saying is, I spoke with the Christchurch City Council Community Board, one of the community boards, and I got an excellent response on bus stops in their area. Because I've done it for so many times, I have got in some community board areas very good responses. In some other areas, I don't. But what I'm asking you now for is the support of you who run the bus systems so that your drivers don't have to get up and do the first aid or ask us as first aiders, like I'm a qualified first aider, to get off and look after the injured person who's tripped at the bus stop. And I have seen that just about occur because of the depth of it as well, and the fact that the legality of the design is not the same. Go and have a look to Cranford Street and you look at what NZTA is putting in now in its new design on Cranford Street, which I've got photographs of as well. They have put it in, if you go to north of Westminster Street, the bus stop is now up here, so that when the bus drives along, it is level with the door. That's New Zealand Transport Authority for you. Maybe that's coming as a standard on their roads. But I would say to you still that when it comes to these basic ones around the city council roads, you need to be asking them for what they've guaranteed you over the years. And you probably were on council when that was approved. 2009? Not quite. You would have heard me speak on it afterwards. And because, so I've said this to the council on many occasions, and I'm asking you as the contractors of the services to make sure your bus companies are safe, your bus passengers are safe, because that is the ultimate issue for me as an individual who will be using the bus services for life. That you provide these services, ladies and gentlemen, and it is a safety issue for me and 80,000 others to start with epilepsy around the country. How many do you have in Canterbury? Therefore, what about around the other parts of the disability sector? But I'm trying to keep this on a personal thing. I've given you examples to start your thinking here very specifically at specific places that I know exist. So you can go and start and look at them and say, this is what is wrong, and you can see it. And then you can start to work at things from there.
Thank you. Any other questions? So Councillor Southworth.
Just thank you very much for this, and I'd just like to say I think it's broader than just people with disabilities as well, because as a mum who's been on the buses with pushchairs and with small toddlers, I've watched my toddler having to step down a step that's about half as big as him, and you've got, you know, it's tricky, and so I totally relate. The 2009 guidelines that you've provided or shown us that exist, you've mentioned that there's newer facilities now that are being done by the NZTA. Do those guidelines that CCC have got need updating, or would that be sufficient?
I was told a couple of years ago, and I have an email at home on it, that these were in the process of being updated. But until I have the new copy of them myself, which the council gave me years ago, I can only refer you back to this, and then you ask the Christchurch City Council whether they are in the process of still doing it. I was told in 2017 they were starting on it. So, as I haven't got the up-to-date set yet, I can only refer you back here to start you. My point in mentioning this is to start you as to where I start from.
Thank you, Philip. Councillor Haynes.
I won't keep us too long, but thank you, Philip, for coming along, and thank you for presenting this to us. I think it's really good for us to have it brought to our attention so that we can ask some questions. So want to say thank you for that, and just and also thank you for your time as president of DPA and the work that you do there.
Thanks.
It's beautiful.
No longer president.
But you were, but when you were, yes, when you were. So thank you. Yeah, from before. Okay, that's fine, Philip. No worries.
The thing I want to make quite clear: I had a disability all my life, had epilepsy all my life, so I have been obligated to use the bus for 62 years. So I will always base my submissions to you based on the fact that it is one of the most driverless conditions of the world, that you can never use a car without 12 months clear, or 24 months, or in my case, I have 36 months clear. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Philip. Thank you for taking your time to come along, and thank you for being a community advocate. We really appreciate people like you, and it's good. So now what I'll do is I'll ask the council to pass a resolution about this. So I'd like to call for a mover and a seconder of the resolution that says, and Councillor Hands is indicating that she will move this resolution, receives the request from Philip Haythornway regarding safety and accessibility of the bus stops, and refers the matter to the Chief Executive to investigate and reply. So that's moved by Councillor Hand and seconded by Councillor Phil Clearwater. All those in favour, please say aye. And that's carried. Thank you very much, Philip. Okay, that'd be great. Oh, that'll be great. Well, that'll be good. Well, Stephanie will collect that and we'll have that there. And we will make sure we get back to you about the outcome of our staff having a look at what we can do. So we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chair, councillors, for taking the time to hear it, and I do hope we can get some change here to make sure this issue becomes a unified issue, which is what I'd like to see.
Well, thank you very much. That's lovely. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, bye for now. So I'd like to welcome to the table Jennifer Knox, who's come to talk to the council about the removal of trees in the Ashley River. Welcome, Jennifer. We're really excited to have you here, and
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Jennifer Knox and I live in Rangiora. My purpose for attending is to ask and to learn why the felling of the trees in the section of the Ashley Rakahui Regional Park, forming part of the recent flood management works, was not broadly announced, and why the community was not given a chance to be heard. I regularly use that section of the park as a route of my morning walk. I don't go there anymore. It's empty. A special spot of trees, trails, tranquility, and full of wildlife. It's hard to even imagine why this area could not have been considered of value to locals, given all the activity that occurred. It's a real loss. Sorry. Our voices are data points for decisions, and while I do respect that sometimes work just has to be done because that's what has to be done, this area was special and it was significant to people and it mattered. I want to tell you that on the morning of the felling of the trees by the contractor, the only accessible person that was around was a worker for the company who was parked on the stop bank. He became a spokesperson of sorts, knew more than the locals did. It seemed a really odd way to learn about what was going on. How is that even right? I also remain curious to the actual risk of flooding. The community has now learned a lot of information piece by piece, and I have done my own investigations just to satisfy myself. However, a month has passed and what's gone is gone. I know council members here have been made more than aware of how this action has upset and angered so many people. I stand here, actually I sit here as an individual who shares that anger and sadness. I also ponder why it takes community outrage and such amount of time for everything to be revealed and acknowledged by you. So that leaves now, and what can the community do to be involved to restore some kind of recreational space that is again valued? I want to let you know that I'm keen to be involved somehow. I considered not attending today because things have moved along a little bit, and after reading the latest update article in the Northern Outlook and talking yesterday with the Waimakariri Mayor Dan Gordon, I decided no, I'm going to come and speak up so that we can all learn and that we can move on together. To finish, I believe a community is not just measured by its people. It also includes the places that we value and invest our free time in. When I read words like collaboration, engage, and community in documents and websites and any published thing that you create, I see those things as actions. I believe that they combine for better results and overall outcomes in the end. So please do better. We really are all in this together. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was a lovely presentation. Thank you for not coming. That's very good of you because it takes time and effort to come here. So we really appreciate it. And it's all part of democracy. We need to listen and take action. You're right. So would any councillors like to ask a question? Councillor Edge.
Just a comment, really. Thank you very much for coming along today. I, like you, live in Rangiora and was equally concerned about what happened. Councillor Mackay and I met with Mayor and local residents and discussed the issue and explained what had gone on. And there's some proposals about what might happen in the future. It might be useful if I just run through a couple of bullet points just to clarify where we're at the moment. And really, well, I suppose the question would be, do you think, you already stated really that if we do have a, no, look, I'll run through the things and a question might come out of that. It's in terms of your query about, you're concerned about clarifying how the trees came to be removed in the first place. My understanding and the information presented is that it was posing a flooding risk, and the reports have been done on that. Trees have come out, and I can say that what's going to happen now is the ground will be cleared, it'll be ploughed up, resown, and track reinstated, and the fitness equipment there as a short-term fix, if you like. What has been happening for a while is that the Environment Canterbury has a project called Braided River Revival Project.
Your question is?
My question is that as part of the future discussion process that might go on in delivering a kind of a plan to reinstate part of the area or for the river recreational opportunities, would you be interested in participating in perhaps a community discussion at some stage?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that it's a very special area and a lot of people are very attached. And as a person who likes nature, recreation and the environment, I think it's best to be involved than to be against. So yeah, you have my full support.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mackay.
Madam Chair, through you, may I make a comment? So I'm another councillor from North Canterbury representing you. I really do appreciate you taking the time to come along and express the concerns of the community, and we've heard those loud and clear. And I think I just, on behalf of this council, would like to apologise directly to you, as we have to the community via Mayor Gordon and Mayor Dan, and also through our channels in the paper. But yeah, just our sincere apology on behalf of council. And it is something, the communications is something that we've working very hard at getting better. And we have a public visibility group, and later on, if you care to stay along, you'll hear about some of the work that we're actually looking to do there. But our sincere apologies on that, how that's happened.
Thank you.
Okay, so we don't debate this anymore here. We're just making a couple of comments and some questions. So yes, and you saw the article where we expressed our concerns, and you can be guaranteed that we're trying to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. And we'll also be really keen for you to be engaged with us. So we'll make sure that we work that out. So it's lovely to meet you. And just before you go, we'll pass a resolution. So I'm calling for a mover and a seconder to move that we receive the report, the request from you. You'll see your names there regarding the removal of the trees, and we refer the matter to the Chief Executive to investigate and reply. So it will be moved by Councillor Edge and seconded by Councillor Mackay. All those in favour, please say aye. That's carried. So thank you so much for coming along. We really do appreciate it. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, we're moving on now. We're going to be doing the minutes. So everybody's had a look at the minutes. Are there any issues anybody would like to raise with regard to the minutes? Councillor Pauling.
Kia ora, I have two actually, but the first one is just to follow up in regards to the point on page 10 about the petition we had around te reo Māori pronunciation at the bus exchange. Have we got an update on that, or can we get an update for our next meeting?
I might just ask the CE to give us a short verbal update.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pauling. I can confirm that the current system is not enabled to do proper te reo pronunciation, and indeed by virtue of that we will be replacing it. That's in the procurement process at the moment, so I can't speak any further about that detail, but I can say that my expectation is that we will resolve this issue, and there'll be a further update as we promised during te reo week.
And oh, sorry, and can I just remind people that, and for the public who are here, that came through a person who came and spoke to us at the last meeting. So this is a good example of how we deal with it. You keep going, Craig.
Yeah, kia ora, so thank you, Stephanie. So my second one is page 11.6, and that was in regards to the local government statement. And I just wanted to thank staff for implementing this action. I went on the website the other day and had a look at our local government statement. This is around having bilingual headings in that statement, and I can say it looks fantastic. So just wanted to say thank you for following up on that and getting that up online. So kia ora.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pauling. And are we right with those changes?
Oh, they're not changed.
No.
These are matters arising?
Yeah,
Yes.
move them to wherever you have to move them. Matters arising. Yes. So they're not actually changes to the minutes. So I'll call for a mover and a seconder. Oh, sorry, Councillor Marshall, have you got an issue?
It's just matters arising from the Greater Christchurch Partnership update comments there. I'd just request that my abstention from one of the matters be noted in the public minutes as well. They seem to have been removed. So just making sure that's carried through, please. Oh, just in today's minutes, they have been removed, but they were in the public excluded version. So I'm just wanting to make sure that is carried through.
Okay, we'll undertake to get that done. That's great. Thank you very much. So we don't need to note that in the resolution. Oh, you will?
Yes.
Okay, we'll add that to the minutes as noted. So I'll call for. Oh, is there anybody else wanting to raise anything about the minutes? All right, thank you. So who would like to move that they're a true and correct record of the meeting? Thank you, Councillor Farn, and a seconder, Councillor Vicky Southworth, that these are a true and correct record of the last meeting with those matters noted. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say no. There being nobody, that's carried. Okay, matters arising. We've got those noted. Yes. So we don't need to talk about them again because we already talked about them just then. Thank you very much. Now, moving along, we're up to our number 7 committee. It's a report from the standing committees that we have, and Councillor John Sunkel is the chair of the Performance Audit and Risk Committee. So now over to you, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First order of business, the minutes having been circulated, could I have someone from the Audit and Risk Committee please move? Thank you, Chair Jenny, and seconded by Councillor Mackay. Those in favour of receiving these as a true and accurate record, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Moving to the body of the minutes, it was a reasonably quiet meeting. I just note on item 5.4, there was a conversation around risk associated with COVID as we came to the end of the financial year, and we sought assurance from our accounting team that we were in order, particularly with audit coming up, and that associated risks were taken into account as we looked at our budgets going forward, and gained that assurance from the team on those matters. Item 7.1, COVID reporting, end of year audit process. Again, a similar conversation, and we note that there are approximately 12 levels of service that will not be attained this year due to primarily COVID. And again, asking those questions, we're comfortable that some of those are purely in a sense of definition or interpretation and really tied with COVID. And we also asked some questions, 6.2, which I'd missed, around our disruption management and assurance that the organisation was well prepared given we were in level 2, and any consideration if we went to level 3 or where we were travelling. And again, we are comfortable with the position of the organisation and the work that's happening in that place. I think they're the only issues I just wish to comment on briefly. Any questions from Council? If none, I move back to the chair to.
Yes, so I'll call for a mover and a seconder that the recommendations on page 1 of the additional paper moved by Councillor Mackay, seconded by Councillor Grant Edge. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. If there's anybody against, there being none, that's carried. Thank you, Councillor Sunkel. We're up to 7.1.2. It's the Regulation and Hearing Committee, and Councillor Mackay is the chair of that committee. Over to you, please, Claire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will take this item as being read, and the minutes have been circulated here as part of your agenda. We are looking at confirming minutes for our meetings the Thursday, the 23rd of July, and also Thursday, the 13th of August. You'll note those meetings, we were looking at, covering both of them, we were looking at appointing panels, hearing panels for Bathurst, Cole and Tegel, and also somebody to hear objection of costs, and a pre-hearing facilitator for a Fulton Hogan application. We've also got there circulated the unconfirmed minutes of our last meeting, which was held on the 20th of August, which was a late item that was actually presented to us, but it was around the recommendation for an expert consenting panel member as part of the COVID Fast Track Act for Rapiki Kainga. Just hang on, I have to get to that one to be actually clear. Papakainga, yeah. So that was a recommendation of a panel member there that we put forward, and then another panel would make that selection. They were to form a group of people from which the panel would be selected. So are there any questions around those 3 meetings?
Through you, Madam Chair. Claire, the objections to costs, there are several in both sets of minutes. Is that a increase in numbers to normal, or is this sort of the normal state of affairs in terms of the numbers of objections to costs?
Our committee has asked that of staff, and we've been advised that it's partially a hangover from COVID impacts, interruptions. So we're just starting to get, there's been an absence of them, and we've just had 2 or 3 come through in a flurry.
So COVID hasn't caused the objections to cost, but it's the fact that COVID held up the normal flow of information. Well, thank you.
Apologies for lack of clarity.
Councillor, any other councillors wanting to ask questions? All right, so that's all from your report then. All right, I'll call for a mover to move the confirmation of the minutes as outlined, the 23rd of July, the 31st of August, and the unconfirmed minutes of the 20th of August, which we're just receiving. Who would like to move that? Councillor Nicole Marshall, seconded by Councillor Claire Mackay. All those in favour, please say aye. There being no one against, I take that as carried. Thank you very much. Further matters for council decision. This is item 8.1. It's relating to plan changes in the Huranui and Waiau area, and Councillor Mackay is going to talk about it, and it's basically making this operative. So over to you, Councillor Mackay.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Once again, for this item, I'll take this as being read by councillors at this table. Today, we are being asked several recommendations there, which we'll come to do, and it's really around noting the attached documents are there and approving that this is in accordance with Clause 17 of the Resource Management Act. But I think it's important just to remember where we are in the process here. This council adopted the decision, the hearing panel's decisions in our meeting on the 12th of March, and those tracked versions are provided further on in the agenda here. So this was the final step to occur to, the final step to occur to make this operative was where we had a memorandum of understanding with the Amurli Irrigation Company to offset, I guess, some nitrogen load of their consents. So that has now happened. It was part of a deed of undertaking between AIC and Environment Canterbury as part of the plan change. That has now occurred, it's completed, and so we're now at the stage that we can make this plan operative. The intended date is the 14th of September, as you will note in the purpose of our briefing paper today. So if there's any questions, we do have planning staff in the room or online. So if I can answer them, I will refer them to the appropriate people.
Councillor Edge and then Councillor Phil Clearwater. But you're first, Councillor Grant.
Just a query. I just wondered, are there any implications on this plan change now that we have a new NPS on freshwater? I'm thinking in terms of the proposed management planning and schedule system. If not, how would that be handled?
The short answer is no.
All right, Councillor Clear up.
I guess I'd like more sort of understanding of that. It's pretty staff aren't here, that's all. My question was kind of related in that in relation to the new national policy statement and regulations, for example, or particularly with nitrate limits or nitrogen limits, just how that affects these decisions.
So I believe staff are here.
Ask Andrew to speak. Andrew Parrish.
All right, Andrew Parrish, are you online? Yes. Would you like to speak to this, please? And maybe if you could refer back to sort of why it's happened, so people in the community understand what's actually happening here, that'd be good.
Yeah. So in terms of the purpose of the plan change, the purpose of the plan change was to ensure that dryland farmers would have less burdensome provisions in terms that were equitable to the scale and intensity of their activity. We were very conscious, as was the zone committee, that we should not be increasing the nutrient loss. Hence the reason why Amurli Irrigation Company agreed to hand back nutrients to allow dryland farmers to continue operating as a permitted activity and to ensure that no more nutrient was emitted into the catchment. In terms of giving effect to the NPS, this plan change occurs ahead of the new Action for Healthy Waterways package. Therefore, while we do need to consider the new national policy statement for freshwater management within the Huranui catchment, it does not have to be considered as part of this plan change. It must be considered by 2024, but that is a future planning process that this council must undertake.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That made it really clear, or in addition to Claire's explanation. Thank you very much. Where are we up to? Is there any more questions? There's a question from Megan. Councillor Hands.
Sorry, it's more of a comment than a question, which seems to be the theme of the day, but I just wanted to take the time to express thanks to Amiri Irrigation for participating in this process in good faith and allowing for a solution for this catchment. So I'd like to have that noted, and if we could extend that to Amiri Irrigation and their shareholders, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hands. Councillor Sunkel.
Thank you for that. And I just reiterate Councillor Hands' conversation and recognition of the role of that retirement. It was a very intense conversation that was had between governors and actors and players and community to get that across the line to achieve an outcome that was equitable to everyone. So a considerable amount of work went into getting this across the line to achieve the outcomes that we wanted. So both from a staff perspective and governance at the time and the community. So really appreciate everyone's input into this and achieving the outcome, which will be really to the benefit of those dryland farmers in that North Canterbury community.
Yes, and I'd like to say I'm really impressed that this happened, because I know how complicated it is to change these plans. And I think everybody who was involved can be congratulated for making sure a group of farmers got fairness. So I think that there's a big appreciation from everybody involved that we got to this resolution. So it's a great outcome. So now I have to remember where we're up to. I think, is there any more questions? All right, we need to move this resolution. Claire, are you going to move this resolution? And seconded by Councillor Sunkel. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anybody against? There being nobody, I'll declare that carried. Thank you very much. It seems you've got a lot of work today, Councillor Mackay. It's 8.2 is on for you again, and it's about the appointment of an alternate. Everybody will know that we're dealing with Plan Change 7 at the moment. And we're talking about appointing an alternative chairperson to help with the hearings. So over to you, Councillor Mackay, to tell everybody what that's about.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, I'll take this paper as read. There are a number of points there which provide the background, some information around the hearing planning and the impacts on our organisation. I guess that this is an immediate response to the situation we find ourselves in, and the context is probably very different now than 6 or 8 months ago. So it's about being prepared for, or contingency planning, one could say, for what we may or may not have to contend with in the future. Due to COVID, we have found that our chair, or the appointed chair of this hearing panel, David Shepherd, is living in Melbourne and unable to probably attend in person without some huge costs and certainly some commitments on his part that he would be giving up. So staff in the panel have done a lot of work behind the scene to try and provide some certainty and a way forward for this hearing to actually continue. And one of the things that we're looking at doing, or what is going to happen, is the chairing will be by audio visual, but of course we can't rely 100% on connectivity 100% of the time. So we're looking at putting in place here, the recommendation is today for us to consider, is that we appoint a chairperson that can step into the breach should there be some of these unforeseen circumstances that we have to contend with. The recommendation that we are asking as an alternate chairperson is for Rob van Velthuizen, who is an experienced chair, and that is the person that we would like to propose as the alternate. Are there any questions that anybody would have?
Yes, I see I have 2 questions, Councillor Marshall and then Councillor Scott. You're first, Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a point of clarification for everyone at the table, can you confirm that as the panel is made up of Judge Shepherd, Rob and Raywin, given that Raywin does not have the chair certification, is that the reason why we are appointing Rob in this instance?
Yes, in short. Thank you, councillor Scott.
I've just got a comment to make on this. I'm hugely disappointed that we've had to get to this position with Plan Change 7. Plan Change 7 was quite arduous on communities that had to go through it. There's quite a lot of emotional input put in into submissions, and that angst is still overhanging in those communities in terms of this. And that's why I see a need for us to get on and do this, even though it is going to be the way it has been designed. I was always really, really keen from my own point of view to have Judge Shepherd in the room, because I think that meeting the decision maker face to face was about natural justice in a way in terms of the outcomes of this. However, having said that, I think the overhanging issues need to be addressed, and I'm sure that that Andrew, I just want to pay tribute to you in terms of the amount of work that you put into this, because I know it's been massive in terms of trying to get this thing back on track. I am disappointed, but my disappointment is somewhat satisfied the fact that we are actually going to get on and get this hearing underway. So that's all I have to say, Chair.
Any other questions? Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, I just want to echo Peter's sentiments, and disappointing that we have to go through this process. So I support the process. I find it unsatisfactory that our chairman is in Melbourne for the hearings process for the same reasons as Councillor Scott has articulated.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much. Just so everybody knows, Andrew Parrish. He's online and he's a staff member, so it's a bit awkward for people who can't see. Or can you see them all up there? Yeah. But anyway, you might not know who we're talking about for members of the public who are here. So just a little explanation. So we're up to we're looking for a mover and a seconder for the resolutions related to this issue. So I'll call for a mover and a seconder to appoint Rob as the alternative chairperson. Moved by Councillor Mackay, seconded by Councillor Marshall. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. There being nobody opposed, I'll declare that carried. Thank you very much. Now, the next item is item 8.3. It is the Te Waihora Co-Governance Management Agreement. Now, the first thing I'll do at this report is that I'll move that we table the Governance Agreement 2020, a full version of the report. And is there a seconder for that resolution? Seconded by Phil Clearwater. I'll move that we, all those in favour of tabling this report, please say aye. Nobody is opposed, so that's carried. We will get staff to put this up on the public agenda as well, and we're tabling this as part of the agenda today. And I'll just confirm that all councillors have seen this agreement and been taken staff advice around it. Now I'd like Councillor Pauling to speak to this report, please.
Kia ora koutou. Happy to introduce this paper. So this is a pretty exciting development in the Te Waihora Co-Governance Partnership, and really reflects the maturing of the agreement and the partnership. And it's important to remember, I think, that the voluntary nature of this co-governance arrangement, which in other parts of the country is dictated by legislation and or treaty settlement. So it's important to note that history, and that it started between Te Rūnanga o Ngāi Tahu acting on behalf of the 6 Papatipu Rūnanga with customary association to Te Waihora, and Ecan as the other partner, but now includes the Selwyn District Council, the Christchurch City Council, and the Department of Conservation. So this proposal really just is an update to the agreement in line with where things have got to with the adding of these partners over time. And there's some word changes to reflect that more complex arrangement between having more partners involved. It also provides significantly for public meetings under Lagoima, and it also provides for a change in the structure around the co-chairing of the partnership. So it's co-chaired, so you have 2 co-chairs appointed. One in the past was from the original partners, which was Ngāi Tahu and Ecan, and what's been proposed in this change is that there's one co-chair will come from Ngāi Tahu still, and then one will come from the other partners as a collective, which I think is a really good move. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge the work of all the partners around the co-governance arrangement and the agreement already reached at those meetings for this to progress these changes, and in particular the work of the Southern District Council in leading that work. And I'm really happy that we're able to refer to the tabled full agreement now, so people can see that the substance of the agreement hasn't changed. Just really those technical matters around providing for the partnership and those public meetings, like I said. So I'm really happy to move the recommendations, the 3 recommendations there, and I'd like to get seconded.
I'll move by, seconded by Councillor Phil Clearwater. I'll put that to the vote. All those. Oh, do you want to speak? Yeah, I'll let.
I really echo what Councillor Pauling has said, Madam Chair. Like, clearly this is around rejuvenating the lake, and it just seems to me there's been a succession of really good developments in terms of the work we have been doing with Ngāi Tahu, and as the report indicates, and as Craig has said quite eloquently, this has got a long history to it too. But in many ways, for me, this marks a turning point in terms of our co-governance. So yeah, I just think the whole concept of shared decision making this way, and that it's been developed on a voluntary basis, is just wonderful. Thank you.
Councillor Sunkel.
Thank you very much, and I sought earlier some clarity as to the changes between this document and the original document, and have confidence that there are no significant changes, in particular relating to, I guess, the land areas that sit around the lake, some of the procedural stuff, and the bringing out of actions into schedules to allow for changes in there, but remaining the document itself remaining intact. I guess I note, given representations from a number of landowners and those who farm within that constituency around the lake, the concerns of what the actions might be, and I just really want to reassure them. And I guess just note to council that when we communicate these conversations and we look at who's in a governance role and what we're going to achieve, we equally need a good conversation with the people that live in those catchments and give them a good understanding of where things are. So no, things haven't changed significantly. Those actions that have fallen out into the schedules are those actions that were there. But we just, again, I guess, given the conversations we had earlier at council of good conversations with the communities that will be affected as actions sort of play out and working towards the restoration of the lake.
Thank you, Councillor Sunkel, and I'll just make a comment myself. I've been involved with the co-governance arrangement since I was first elected last October, and I'm really impressed with how the agencies are working together. I think it's a fantastic example of people not taking a siloed approach. I think rejigging the formal agreement like this empowers all the parties. It also empowers the community, and it brings to life the duty that we have in local government and under the LGOIMA, the Local Government Information, Official Information Act, to make sure the work we do is transparent and open to the public. We really welcome the public joining in, and we look forward to a more joined up role, especially with people being able to collectively decide who the chairperson is, which is quite significant, because previous to that it was always stipulated that it was the chair of Canterbury Regional Council, and I'm not saying it won't be, but it enables other empowerment actions to happen depending on who's involved from the various other agencies and who's involved from indeed our representative group on the co-governance model. And it is really significant that it's voluntary. It's an excellent example of how there is goodwill in the communities to work together, and it doesn't always have to be mandated by legislation. So I've really appreciated the chance of being able to be there, and I'm looking forward to more interesting and exciting action from the group and working with the local community out there, as you indicated, Councillor Sunkel. So that is going to be moved by councillor Pauling and seconded by councillor Claire Philwater. Phil Clearwater. This is what happens when I talk too much. All those in favour, please say aye. Anybody against? There being nobody opposed, I'll declare that carried. Thank you very much. I think that's a fantastic outcome. And I should say thank you to the staff for drafting all of that and working with the communities, because you did a fantastic job. I really actually enjoyed reading the whole document. That's it there if anyone wants to read it. It's really good. What are we up to? Louise, you can help me not be lost here.
Page 65.
Okay, and
Then we're in the
oh, that's right, we are. Wait a minute till I get to page 65. I hope everybody's on the right page. Page 65. Just let me get there. Right, this is the memorandum of understanding around the Whakaropo Littleton Harbour Catchment Plan, which is a really innovative way that we've been working with the community, in particular mana whenua, and I'll hand over to Councillor Farn to talk more fully about it because she's directly involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, that past item was a really good frame for this other example of really positive co-governance, partnership and shared decision making in terms of actually achieving outcomes. So the outcomes in this space is the Whakaora Whakaropo Catchment Management, Harbour Catchment Management Plan. And really this is just, again, a change like that was reflected with the Te Waihora co-governance, a change primarily to the chairing of that group. And this is a really positive step. At the last co-governance meeting, we appointed Roger Gray, who's the CEO of Littleton Port Company, to share the co-chair role with Yvette Couch-Lewis, who is the representative from Te Ruranga or Ngāti Wheki. We were really happy about that and we really welcomed Roger, and this is about the formalities of the MOU, basically just catching up with that in terms of making that possible. I did just want to draw councillors' attention to our personal Ecan's commitment to the plan, just for your information. So we contribute one full-time equivalent, basically program manager, to the plan every year, and also 100k in funding every year for 3 years. Now, obviously, we'll be revisiting this as part of our long-term plan discussions, but it's a partnership that is working really well. Yes, we have a lot more stages ahead of us in terms of implementation of the plan and actually achieving outcomes on the ground, but the community are so intricately involved, and there's some really positive events that have been happening lately in terms of planting and people coming together to understand what the plan means and how they can contribute to it. So it's something I'm really happy to be part of, and I will leave the recommendations to you, Chair or Council, to consider.
All right, I'll Councillor Craig.
Button.
Councillor Farm, you made reference to resourcing this through Ecan's one FTE and $100,000 a year. Are there other partners resourcing amounts into that, or staff into that?
There are, off the top of my head, no, I shouldn't go there off the top of my head actually. There are commitments of varying amounts, and it's something that we are again addressing for the future. Thank you.
I'd like to ask the CEO if she can enlighten us more. Thank you.
So I don't have those specific figures, but what we will do is get those and ensure that they're attached to the minutes in the appropriate way so that that's made public. Yeah.
And could I suggest that could we somehow have that in the LTP discussions too? Because we want to make sure that these projects that we're working significantly, I would have thought, are well resourced. So if we can put it in that plan next to that for consideration. Now I've got Councillor Pauling. Oh, you're not finished. Sorry.
I never got to finish that because that was, I guess, the basis of the question I was asking in terms of to make sure that we note that going forward.
Sorry, Vicky has just drawn my attention to it as well. In the minutes in page 73, they are actually stated there, so I didn't need to draw on my
bad memory. So the mover would like to speak. That's Craig Pauling.
Yeah, kia ora, koutou. Thanks, Lan, for introducing this. Yeah, I think like the Te Waihora co-governance model, this is another great example of collaborative action, between councils, and in this case, it also involves the Littleton Port Company, which is great to see. The sort of industry and is involved as well. And for collaborative action around such a significant taonga in our region. And yeah, it's good to note that the Littleton Port puts in 100,000 as well, and Ngāti Wheki themselves are putting in 50,000. So that's great to see that the contributions are shared amongst the parties. We'll have to do a bit of work on CCC. But no, it's really great. And I just want to support this change and for the continued progress within the whakaora work. So yeah, happy to move it.
Councillor Clearwater.
I'm really impressed with the progress of this and the point that it's at now. And it's been a long time in the making, and I've been aware that earlier councillors have been involved, and really, I think it's great that how much the regional council have been involved too in such an important project. I think it's an example where, in fact, it's been gone so well we don't hear about it nearly enough. And I just note in the report, in fact, that the Whakaora Healthy Harbour Partnership, it got last year got a best practice in consultation and participation, and well deserved. But I think it's an example where sometimes we take for granted the excellent cooperation and collaboration, not just around this table, but with other tables that have been done before. So I say well done.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Mackenzie.
Well, Councillor Pauling raises a question as to why the City Council isn't contributing. Do we have an answer to that?
Working on it.
Can I just say that we'll put that on the agenda for consideration at the appropriate time. Thank you very much. So no other people wish to speak or ask questions. All right, so we've got it moved by Councillor Pauling and seconded by Councillor Scott. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. There being nobody opposed, I'll declare that carried. Thank you very much. We're on to page 76. It's around our public visibility working group. This is a really important initiative of the new council because we really want to make sure we're working in a transparent way, but more importantly, we are undertaking the goal of Section 14 of the Local Government Act around having the community participate as much as we can in our council. So Councillor Nicole Marshall's been doing some excellent work with staff on this, and I'll ask her to speak to this small report that's on the agenda. Thanks, Nicole.
Kia ora, Chair. I just want to thank Kathleen, Catherine, Aronga Whanoki for their involvement in this group in the last month. So across August, the Visibility Working Group has had 2 workshops across the road at Aronga Whanoki. The first one was introducing the concepts that staff had come up with as part of this visibility conversation. Staff had picked up that council wanted us to be more visible in our region, in our communities, and really wanted to work with us on that. So the first workshop in early August, we were introduced to the community conversation framework, which you have included in your minutes, which is the high level, how we frame the conversation that we want to have with our community, and how we can step through that process so everyone involved in a conversation understands what we're there to talk about. Sitting underneath that, there's the engagement hub. So that's the tools and the resources and the right people to talk to within Ecan to make sure you know how to have that conversation. You can get help if you need it. And so as part of that, we have engagement champions. And again, those are the right people within the organisation on certain topics, and also the right councillors, understanding where to go and who to talk to, so that we have communication champions within our own team, but also within the wider Environment Canterbury team. So that first workshop was introducing us to that framework, which I've had sitting in our council meeting room since then. Last week, myself and Vicky again sat down across the road and we talked through what our framework could look like for the long-term planning engagement approach, based on our community conversation framework. And we workshopped how that may look. And this is a conversation that is coming back to council for a workshop next week, how we can fit what our aspirations are within this proposed framework to really maximise the engagement opportunities through our long-term planning process. Now, it's really important to note that this is still at the conversation phase. We haven't committed to doing anything new or spending any money, Ian. But this is a concept that I'm really excited about, how we can draw together and make sure everyone at the table is understanding what conversation we're having and what we're going to be getting out of the conversation, but also tying together all the disparate strands that we know exist and making it really clear where we are in a conversation, using the Ashley River as an example. You know, we had previously consulted in our flood protection works, but that wasn't front of mind for our community. And so how can we use this framework so that everyone involved in a conversation understands where the conversation is at, how they can best feed into the process, and as a Canterbury community, we can get the best outcomes for everyone involved. So I'll leave it at that, and I invite questions from the table at this stage.
Yes, any questions? Councillor Mackenzie.
You're frowning at me, Madam Chair. I guess I read this report, and it just and I've got some concerns, and I've talked to Councillor Marshall offline about those concerns, but I think it's worth airing those concerns at the council meeting, and that is that when we as a regional council talk to our constituents about projects we can and can't do to achieve lovely things, whether it's braided rivers or restoring Littleton Harbour, all those things come with a cost. I think it's critical that when we are discussing things with constituents and we're asking them how they want to engage and what projects they'd like to engage with, that they understand the implications in terms of rate rises or uniform annual general charges, but in fact the revenue that the regional council has to pull in to be able to do some of this work. And so I'm just looking for reassurance that as this program progresses, that whole conversation is had.
Yes, sorry, I just cut you off.
So through you, Madam Chair, responding to that, Councillor Mackenzie, so that on page 81 of your agenda, there's the community conversation framework. So in the checking understanding, that's where we would say, this is what we've heard from you, and here's a potential indicator of scale of cost, understanding that we are ratepayer funded. And then when we get into the getting practical side of the conversation, that is this is exactly how much it's going to cost you. And then through the formal feedback as well, that's where we can make sure we get those charges right and the costings right, so that we are doing what we want, but it's within the realms of affordability for our communities. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. We'll consider it in line in the LTP as you suggested. Thank you much, Councillor Phil Clearwater.
Thank you, Nicole. So just following Ian's question really too, it just is clear, and from the notes, that in fact that it's quite a high level challenge in many ways to do best engagement and with best endeavours. And I just recall in the workshops too that there was reference, and I'm pleased we're having a workshop on this, because I think we'll become better informed and more au fait with the new processes. But I just wondered if Teflon might be able to comment on, like, there was an indication, I think, at the time of the discussions, that because of the importance of the staff would be involved and around training. And I'm just wondering if for the councillors who are going to be involved on an ongoing basis, is there also potential for, I guess, further training and learning?
Councillor Marshall, would you like the staff to have a comment?
Taplin, would you like to comment, or would you like me to respond? I'm happy for you to take ownership of this response.
Thank you, councillors. Absolutely. Yeah, it was one of the things that was discussed with the councillors in the working group, as you pointed out, Councillor Clearwater, that we talked about how the tools and the engagement hub learning and skills can be how councillors can access that, and the same with the champions, as Councillor Marshall indicated, that there could be champions within this group assisting council in these conversations, and also working with staff. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Teflon. Any other questions about this report? All right, I'd just like to make a comment. And I just think it's really important to note that this is one of our key transformational opportunities that we're going to be doing under our new strategic direction and our long-term plan around building community engagement and action. So I really appreciate all the work that's been done on it already. And as I often say, we are going to be looking at forms of deliberative democracy, which means getting citizens, that's the people, directly involved in forums to help us decide some issues which I believe the community really wants to do these days. And I'd just like to make a comment while you're at the table, Teflon, since you're the head of communication, that you helped me write an article that appeared in this Christchurch Star recently, inviting people not to be shy and come along and talk at our Excellent Citizens Forum. I'd like to tell you that it's very exciting because Jennifer, who spoke today, that's the reason she's here. So I think that's so exciting that she came, and she made a suggestion that maybe we should get that article in some of the rural papers as well, because she comes from North Canterbury. So I thought that's a really positive outcome that staff have worked with us all on. So thank you very much. Now I'd better stop talking and get on with this, where we're up to. So I'll ask, are you going to move this, that your report be accepted, Councillor Marshall, and seconded by Councillor Vicky Southworth? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of accepting it, please say aye. There being no one against accepting it, they'll declare that carried. Thank you very much. That's excellent. We're up to 8.6 now. Changes to fees. Thank you for coming, Jennifer. Bye. 8.6 changes to fees and charges policy. It's over to you, Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, this paper is one of the late papers that was presented, so hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to read your digital version that was sent around last night. Okay, so since there are some councillors at the table that haven't, I will just draw your attention to pages 13 of 17. I presume that they are separate to the, yeah, so it's the same numbers as what I've got online, which was the first of our meetings, and perhaps I'd better step back. So at our previous council meeting, we adopted a hearing panel, which was actually the Regulation Hearing Committee panel, to hear the submissions and to come to a decision and to make that decision on behalf of council. So this has occurred on the 13th of August, where we heard the oral submissions that were provided to us, and we also took cognizance of the written submissions. We then had our deliberations was on the 21st of the 8th.
Sorry about this side conversation. I'm just asking staff for advice here. I'm just wondering, since we've now got on recording, councillors have said they haven't had time to read this paper. I wonder if we should officially adjourn the meeting just for a short period of time so councillors can actually read that paper. What is your advice?
Yes, Scotty.
All right, so Councillor Mackay, do you just want to finish the introduction and then we might adjourn? For how long do you think it'll take? Have a bit of an adjournment. We don't need the time. Yeah, and then we'll come back in. So Councillor Mackay, if you just want to finish the introduction.
Well, I think it's probably appropriate that people do read the minutes of our two meetings, because that is quite an important decision that we've made here, that we're asking council to go on a note. Happy.
All right, so we'll just we'll adjourn the meeting at 12:20 and we'll reconvene when we decide in a minute. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. We're reconvening the meeting at 12:29. I will just invite the CE to say a few words about the process so far.
So
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment that this, the last meeting was on the 21st of August, which was last Friday, and the agenda papers go out before the weekend. And obviously that meeting was held and then this information came afterwards. So that is why it is late. I do hear councillors on this and being able to make sure that papers are provided in advance in an appropriate manner. So my apologies to councillors on that account.
Thank you very much. Going back to you, Councillor Mackay, we'll continue your leading the report, please.
Thank you very much. So, as I said before, I'll just address the minutes of our two meetings that we had around the hearing. And just to remind people that the committee or the panel was charged with the hearing and then making the decisions as a result of that hearing. And to that end, I would just, before we go on, like to thank my fellow panel members that were part of that, particularly the submitters who took the time to make submissions, and the staff who helped us and supported us in the process. We really appreciate that. Now, I will take the minutes as read now that we've had the adjournment, so I appreciate you taking that time to do that. I think the important resolutions on the decisions that I'd just like to draw your attention to inform your decision making that we're going to be asked for today are on page 17. As the panel, we were charged with looking at two options. That's what was consulted on and the submitters provided feedback on. Essentially, we had an option where the continued under recovery of something like 600,000 to 800,000 per annum would occur if we didn't change the fees and charges in such a manner that they were fully recovered, and also increase the fees, which hadn't occurred for some 10 years. The panel was unanimous in the decision that we came to, which was option 2, which was to increase the charge out rates for consent applications as soon as practicable, noting that, as soon as practicable. And the reason for that was that we weren't being charged with looking at the fees and charges policy as such, which has a users pays policy. So therefore, to be consistent, we had to go with option 2. However, the submitters, all submitters, whether they were for or against whichever option, there were some consistent themes that came through, and the panel wished to try and feed back some of that information to council to incorporate in its long-term plan thinking and the review that the fees and charges policy will undergo as part of that. And we've incorporated that in a recommendation today to council. So on page 17, I just draw your attention to the fact that the panel did decide, the decision was to go with option 2 to increase the charge out rates, and also recommend to council that it commission staff to review and implement improvements in the overall transparency and efficiency of the consent processing in order to inform the development of the long-term plan, including the fees and charges policy. Now, I know as council we have had some high-level discussion around that, so I think that's been indicated, and staff have already brought us some of their thinking around the innovative regulator and some other stuff that they're actually working on. So then I will just draw your attention to the front part of this paper, so that's page 11, where today we are, as a council, being asked to note the hearing panels, basically that we've had the hearings and deliberated the submissions on those dates of the 13th of August and the 21st of August, and that we would like to commission staff to review and implement improvements to the overall transparency and efficiency of the consent process. Now, I understand it might be that recommendation that we're looking at, just getting some clarity around the wording, and that we note the resolutions made by the hearing panel were under delegated authority.
Yes, well, I'll just clarify that. If you turn to page 11, you'll see the resolutions there on the report for today. And so number 2, I've just had some advice around this. So it's going to read commissions staff to review and report to the council on the proposed implementation of improvements. Now that'll probably go through Claire's committee. So we're just going to add those words and reports to the council on the proposed implementation of improvements. And then we'll be doing the public transparency. So just to add that. Now, we've got, Claire, keep going. You're sorry.
Before we move those, I'd just like to have note, unfortunately, the error of Councillor Ian Mackenzie's name in the minutes on page 13. Apologise, Councillor Mackenzie, for that.
Apologies accepted. My grandfather spelled his name Ian both ways, so I'm not offended.
Right, Megan. Councillor Hand.
Just on that proposal to change that recommendation, I'm comfortable with the recommendation as it's written here because I don't believe that staff need to report back to us. I'd like to see this implemented as soon as possible. So I'm comfortable in trusting staff that they could provide us a report for information in terms of what is implemented, but I trust staff will implement these improvements as we've already communicated to them multiple times throughout this process as we've undergone this review.
Can I just say, it's for transparency. I'll ask for advice from the CE. Oh, I know, we'll have advice from the CE.
I'm quite prepared to have the amendment and then in practice do it as quickly as practical, and I'm certain we can do that very quickly on your behalf.
Thank you.
Really supporting the amendment, that's all. It's basically to, if I may, basically if council are responsible for the changes and we have delegated the decision on the options to the committee, and that's fine. And but not for me, making further changes as suggested improvements, which we are looking for, really should be the responsibility of the whole council. We're all accountable, not just the committee or the staff. So
okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, I've cut you off.
Also for transparency, I think that the amendment is very practical.
Are there any other questions people wanted to ask? Councillor Edge.
Just in support of the amendment and yes, back in terms of Councillor Clearwater's comments about transparency, we've been talking about that all today. And in fact, during the hearing process, the range of suggestions from the submitters was really quite exciting, and I think it has a real possibility of coming up with some really good solutions going forward.
Thank you. Councillor, have you got a question?
Comment. Do you want me to comment?
Whatever you want to say.
I find this reasonably weird actually, because although those members of the hearing committee can, I guess, justify their reasoning around why we've got these 3 recommendations, I have a wee bit of trouble with the second one. We've always known that we were in a bit of a hole for money in terms of this, and we had to go through a hearing process to change that, and I'm supportive of that. But I would have liked us to have an understanding in terms of what number 2 meant, and the opportunity to caucus that amongst ourselves before we sit around this table and just have to approve it. And I know there is a good explanation around that, Stephanie, and you've given that. But I just find that I might be in the grumpy corner here today, but I just find that I'm a wee bit grumpy around the fact that we haven't had that opportunity to talk about that, because I haven't got a clue what that means.
Okay, we haven't got a text. There's a whole lot. Anyway, Claire.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide some clarification. As I said before, the Regional Hearing Committee, as a committee, was charged with hearing the specific stuff around the options and making a decision. So that was the only decision option that we had. But there were a lot of themes that were picked up in the submissions that were very consistent and not inconsistent with some of the conversations that we have ourselves around this council table. and the thinking of even where staff are going, that we would like to in some way daylight and feedback to this council to have a bigger discussion. And I think that, Peter, I hear what Councillor Hans is saying, but I actually do feel perhaps if we change it to the recommendation as amended, I'm quite happy that that's going to come back for the council to have that fuller discussion. It is only a recommendation that the council has that discussion around this table and makes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Pauling.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to this. I was on the committee alongside Councillor Mackay and others, and yeah, I think I really support what Councillor Mackay's just said, and Councillor Scott. I think that to cast some light on it, that the submitters, especially the oral submitters, gave really practical feedback to us about what they face in dealing with our staff, and it's all privy there. You can read it all in the minutes, etc. And in particular around having fair estimates for the costs that they face when they deal with their consenting processes. So that's what we're talking about. That's the efficiency matter. And the transparency was around that, them being able to forecast that for their businesses and us to provide that to them. So that's what it's really about. But of course, that's what staff now have to go away and see if that's possible. And that's what you'll get back and we'll all get back as part of that recommendation 3. So I think it's just the start of it. It's not, it's not the end of it. So.
So Mackenzie, you had a question?
Yeah, so my question, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is a question about some of the content that deliberation the staff will be having. And so Mrs. Andrea Chalmers in her submission, for example, asked whether consenting applications where there are multiple applications for effectively one use, bundling of consents to have one consent. Is that possible, or is that one of the questions we've asked our staff?
I imagine that we've tried to make the framework quite wide so that those sorts of things could be looked at as options to increase efficiency and effectiveness of the whole process. Not only for our organisation, but particularly for our organisation, but also for our applicants.
Thank you. Did we have anybody else? Councillor Nicole Marshall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reflect on Peter's position and just in the course of this conversation here, that when I first heard the proposed amendment, I was feeling a bit like Peter, even though I've been part of the panel. But sitting back and reflecting on the conversation and where we've come, where we're sitting today, with staff that were already aware of the inefficiencies and were aware they needed to undertake the work to improve the process for the customer. And then they have now had the reinforced endorsement of that process from council. We don't know the best way as councillors for staff to improve their processes. So hearing back from staff on what they see as the process efficiencies in a reporting form that we should be undertaking, and us having chance then to further ensure that the things that we have heard from our communities are being addressed or can or can't be in scope for whatever reasons, and seeking that clarity at that point, to me that makes sense. And so I'm now in a position where I do now endorse that amendment, though I was a bit confused in the first instance. So I just want to thank was it Louise or Jenny who came up with the amendment, and yeah, maybe we can have further conversations with the grumpy corner to make sure everyone's happy.
Thank you very much. We're going to get back to some order now. So you're moving this, Claire. Is that appropriate for you to move it?
I can't see why it's not appropriate for me to move it and with the amendment as proposed.
Proposed and seconded by Councillor Mackay is moving the resolution with the agreed amendment, and that's seconded by Councillor Lan Fan. I'll put that to the vote.
We had some discussion, but like, is it? I guess the difficult part about this, the challenge, has been the timing, and that the last meeting, as revised by the CEO, was just the other day, and we're wanting to get this done. But I actually want to thank the committee and the submitters, as Claire did, for what seems to me to be a really good process. We've learned a lot from what the submitters have said, and I think that's ideal in terms of democracy, and it will come back to us for a final sign-off. So I want to thank you all.
Thank you very much for that comment, and I'll just further that comment with by getting coming back to the council, then the submitters then know that we're doing that, and they can see that as well. So I think it's a really good process, and I think the committee's done a fantastic job. And thank you for taking the extra time to do that too. Everybody really appreciates it.
Madam Chair, we are learning from you.
I'm glad I'm having some learnings. I'm learning myself, so we can all learn together. So thank you very, very much. We'll put it to the vote, or unless anybody else wants to speak, because one of the things I tend to do, especially if I've had a coffee before the meeting, is I go a little bit fast, and I'm sorry about that. So everybody in favour, please say aye. Anybody against, please say no. There being nobody against, I'll declare that carried, and thank you very much for all the fantastic staff work on that report. And sorry it took a bit longer. I think we'll just keep going now. We're going to exclude the public now, so we're going to ask anybody who's online or in here who's not officially supposed to be in here to leave, please. So who would like to move that? Moved by Councillor Phil Clearwater, seconded by Councillor Megan Hands, that we exclude the public. All those in favour, please say aye. And that's carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Craig Pauling.
Kia ora, Chair. Yes, I'm just going to give a verbal update on. Yep. Yep. Yeah, we did do it. It was pretty quick. So, yeah.
You, Councillor Pauling.
So yeah, just going to give a verbal update for the regional freelancing and regeneration group. So since my update on the last council meeting, our group met in late July, and I scheduled to meet again in September. Our July meeting received a number of presentations from staff, and this included on funding and regeneration potential on the Canterbury land. It included examples such as opportunities around river firm funding, for example, today, native pregnant protection and retirement plan, for example, potential has been working on retiring land but the potential for mixed exotic and native planting on some of our reserves, for example, and also the opportunity for alongside the work of so that was sort of also had a presentation from our staff on priority actions generation. That included the identification of 35 methane sites. And some of these examples discussed help us understand some of the issues that are involved in some of these places. And they included examples of upper bilateral clearance, also water, finding the way the process. We also looked at data tools that we have to understand the current generation across the region. For example, there's over almost 100 projects that have been involved in that system. Around $3 million being spent on those. With that being activated, things like 330 etc. So that's what we have. That's what we know what's going on. That's what we stop taking. We also looked at some community engagement ideas as well to get people excited and involved with protection, planting and restoration. Hopefully you can all hear that anyway in the background. It'll be muffled. And our next meeting will deal with identifying key components of the future work program to go in forward to the LTP, including the context of what we've looked at in the stock take, sort of a business case proposal, and then investment, intervention and funding options across public, private / landowner, community, industry and landscape spheres. So, kia ora. any questions, happy to take some questions.
Not a question. Well, yes, it is a question. Councillor Pauling, could we have that in written form and attached to the minutes?
Yes, I understand it's going to be a report to the next council, is it? But if you can just give a bit of a summary to Louise and she can put it in this one as well, that'd be great. I'm looking forward to the Kuru corridors becoming a reality. That's a dream under the report from Nicole in the dream section on your circle. Anyway, keep going. That's great, and that was just a way to get Craig's onto this agenda because there wasn't time to get his report on. So it's important that we keep that going. So thank you. Any other questions for Councillor Pauling? Okay, keep up the good work. Do we need to have a resolution to receive that? Yeah.
As the report's actually going to the next council meeting, I think it would be more appropriate. I will note in the minutes.
Yeah.
That
he's going to report to the next one.
Yeah, the report will be the next council.
All right, so we don't need a resolution. So thank you for your advice, Council Secretary. That's great. Any notices of motion? I don't believe we have any notice of motion because I couldn't receive them anyway because you need to get them to me like 5 days before, or you better check that, but a few days before, and then I have to ask the CEO and we have to put them on the agenda. So thank you very much. There's no questions, and I think questions are questions on notice too, although we should check the new standing orders about that. That might have been relaxed.
Questions normally are just as it says on the tin, that's the question, and staff would have referred to a future meeting.
So
not answered at the meeting.
Questions on notice. Yeah. All right, that's cool. Next, so if anybody's got a question, that's what will happen, and unless it's changed in the standing orders we're about going to adopt shortly. The next meeting, we're noting that's on Thursday, the 24th of September. I'm wondering if you're going to close the meeting also, Councillor Elizabeth Mackenzie. That'd be lovely.
Karakia, which will be unuhia. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapo noi o tāne. Kia wātia, kia mama, tinako, te tinana, te wairua I te ara takata. Koe rā I rongo, whakairi aki ki ronga. Kia tina, tina. Homie, hui,
kia ora.